Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell in the upper right-hand corner. Follow me on all forms of social media. Check me out at thatdrummerguy.com. And enjoy the following presentation.
What's happening, man?
Nothing too much. Thank you very much for taking time to do this interview.
Yeah, no problem.
We were able to talk a few years back during the promotion of the last Spock Spirit album that you were a part of, so it's great to be able to catch up with some brand new music and a very cool concept of how this all came together and everything with Pattern-Seeking Animals.
Yeah, it's kind of an accident. I don't know about an accident. It was just sessions. You know, John was going to write some songs, and we were just doing sessions, and he was going to have us play on a core of songs, and I think the thoughts were that he'd have like other people on other songs or something like that, or just maybe have a core group of guys and bring in guests or something like that, sort of like an Alan Parsons thing. But this little group works really well together, so we just kept going, and before we knew it, had an album. We're kind of going, hey, this is good. We might want to really take a look at this.
Yeah, and I have to agree with that sentiment. I mean, it is really good stuff. I really love hearing this different side of, of course, with the past and present members of Spock Spirit, but, just like in a different way. I mean, I love that you guys were able to come together in this kind of way and add your own little spins to it, but, just having some real fun with this from John's ideas and, just being able to create a whole band out of it.
Yeah, well, whenever you join a band that's been around for a while, you have to kind of, at least from my perspective, because I was the new guy, you have to kind of take their sound into consideration. So when you approach the music, you have to, if you stray too far right out of the gate, it's not wrong. It's just you take risks doing that. And the musicians have such defined characters in that band that it sort of forges its own path. Even though Nick and I are different, really different players, we have similar loves and similar inspirations. So our instincts kind of take us the same direction, and we follow the same path. This band, we didn't have to, and even though we still are in a similar genre, and it's still us going, well, we don't have to do that. We don't have to put a noodly bit in here. We can keep it more just a pop tune, or we can, take it weird here. We can make our own rules. So that's kind of where we went with it.
Yeah, and I think that was really for the benefit of the songs, too. I mean, rather than feeling like you have to add instrumental sections that don't need to be there, or a lot of soloing, or a lot of, wacky parts that you would hear in a lot of prog music that people would know for Spock's Beard, you're able to create more pop-friendly songs. You're able to create more catchier, just a few minute songs rather than full-blown half-hour epics, and you were just able to make the songs the way that you wanted to make them.
Yeah, there was more editing done here than, and that's John. There's a few songs that we went in and tracked that were a particular length, and by the time they got to record stage, they had been shaped and formed and cut down, and sometimes we even knew that was coming. We would go in, and the song would be composed a particular way. But it really came down to what does everyone add to the package, and then, are these parts still important? Are they still necessary? And again, that's back to John. There may be some things that we may have hinted at, maybe Dave hinted or Ted, in the process of recording. But yeah, it's really John, and it's his baby. He basically wrote everything. Some of the tunes were based on older songs that he had written with Dave, or Ted added a lyric thing here and there. But yeah, we just kind of stood back and let him do his thing and said, yes, it's great.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. So with that in mind, I mean, obviously with Spock's Beard, that comes with a particular sound for all of the instruments. For Pattern-Seeking Animals, of course, the drums do play a great part in it, and there are some amazing drum fills that really show off what you're capable of and let you shine. So, with that in mind, did you have to change your setup or anything when recording for this album?
Yeah, we, Rich Mauser, recording engineer, and we see very eye to eye on a lot of things. He's this for a lot of drummers, I imagine, just because he has such a great sense of sound. But I would go in and have an idea in mind, because John would send us pretty much fully formed demos. And I would hear the song and kind of form an idea of what I imagined the drums were going to do and what they were going to sound like. And very often it was just a matter of going, hey, you know that song, blah, blah, blah. And he would go, oh, yeah, totally. And then it would just, I would do my part on my end of tuning the drums and setting up the drums, and his part on miking everything. And it just became this fantastic completion of whatever idea I had in mind. He would flush it out in the studio, and it never failed. It was, in fact, in most cases, it was better than I thought. We used a lot of single-headed tom-toms on this record. I think there's only two songs that aren't. Most of it is all took the bottom heads off. Even going as far as Rich has this drum kit that he has in his studio. It's a mishmash Ludwig kit from 70s. I don't think it's older than that. I think it's a 70s kit. But it's a Superphonic snare drum of, I guess, late 60s, a 28-inch bass drum, and then he has a series of toms. He has got a 14, a 16, and a 20-inch floor tom.
Wow.
Yeah, Ludwig's the only company I know that has ever made a 20-inch floor tom, as far as I know. So when I brought my normal Yamaha kit in, it would get augmented every once in a while with those drums. The most prevalent setup that was used, we did either my 22-inch Yamaha kick drum or the 28-inch kick drum, the Ludwig, and then I threw that floor tom at the bottom end, because I had 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and then we threw the 20. It's kind of like a gong drum, really, is what it ends up being.
Yeah.
Because, a gong drum is usually a 20-inch bass drum with a bigger drum head. And yeah, we did a lot of single-headed drum stuff. And when you have that many toms tuned that way with that kind of a sound, you have to kind of play to the kit and play to the room. And so with that giant room, big, huge sounds. You listen to any of the guys that have done that kind of thing. You go to, the Phil Collins, obviously, is the main guy that does that. But, older records, Neil Peart always had that rack of single-headed drums in his kit, in the early days. A lot of 70s guys, it just makes you play a certain way. Steve Negus, Saga, he did some really great stuff with that. And it was just a lot of fun going, what can I do? Where can I go? So, and never with the intention of being showy. That's the one thing that I like most about this record is nobody is approaching it from the point of view of the fusion musician, of how many notes can I play, look at what I can do, look, check me out, look what I can do. It's very much how does it serve the song. So even if there are moments of shine, they're not necessarily quick flourishes of notes. They're more about the impact of the fill and how does it take me to the next section, what it's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. And it's great to see that approach with you guys as well, too. And like I was mentioning before, I mean, there are moments where you do show that off with fills. I mean, Stars Along the Way, the ending of the song really... when you're able to do those really cool fills at the end to really accentuate the things during the solo. I thought that was just so cool to see that, but I'm so glad I didn't hear that throughout the album. Because when you do get to hear those moments, I mean, they make them really stand out and shine when the rest of the album is about just writing for the song.
Right. And that's it. I mean, it's my favorite records are, regarding drums are when, I mean, there's two things. There's stuff like Terry Bozzio when you look at like a Spring Session M record where he's just all over the record. It's all about him and, Dale's squeaky voice and all that sort of stuff. But, so he has these moments throughout the record, and that's fine, and it's great, and it's a big record for me. But my favorite records are stuff by like Steve Gadd and Jeff Porcaro, where it's grooving 90% of the record, and then suddenly out of nowhere you hear this one fill and go, oh man, wait, scratch the record back and listen to it 1,000 times just to take in that one drum fill. And I always found that fascinating, that there are drummers who would be on whole records and you would only talk about that one thing they did, as opposed to everything else they did was about the groove and how it served the song, and then there's that one fill. That's more impressive to me. It's harder. You can do records where there's lots and lots of notes, and that's one kind of a challenge. Portnoy's made a career out of it, and he's great at it. And so it's, okay, he's that guy for that. You know, I feel like if there's too many of us doing that, then you get lost. It just becomes kind of, okay, yeah, it's another self-serving, you know, I don't know. That's just my take on it.
Oh, yeah, and I absolutely see that side of it. And, you know, there is that old saying where the best drummers are the ones that you never talk about, where, you know, it's like they're playing for the song, they're playing live, and it's like you don't notice them live. Like, they're just playing for the song, they're just playing that groove, and they're making everybody shine. And it feels like that you guys are all shining on this record for that reason, where no one is going out of bounds, no one's like doing technical fret work or anything. I mean, it's just a bunch of great musicians getting together and playing music that not everybody knows them for, when they're doing more of like the popular sense of things that are going on. Of course, there's some longer songs going on as well, but when you're able to just step back and not always worry about how many notes you can fit into a fill or whatever the case is, it really shows off the versatility of what you can do.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting for me. You know, I laugh because the session I did right before I took off with SPREAKER was for a guy named Tevin Campbell. Tevin Campbell is an R&B singer. You know, he's a kind of, I wouldn't say hip hop per se. He's more of a traditional R&B singer. He came up with Prince. He was the young kid that Prince started featuring in, you know, in one of his records, and then kept doing records. And he's got an album called Back to the World, and I play on that. But that's the kind of stuff I was doing prior to going out with SPREAKER. I was doing R&B sessions and songwriter sessions where, just as you say, no one notices. It has nothing to do with me. It's a matter of, here's this singer singing this great song. How do we serve that the most? How do we create this bed of sound that best features this song and best features this singer or guitar player, whatever it may be, keyboard player? So to suddenly go into Spock's Beard, where it's like, oh, I don't have to think about limitations. I can play whatever I want, kind of stuff. It was a different change for me. And I mean, easy, because by nature I am a busy drummer. But I had gone this path of being a session guy for so long that I was like, oh, I forgot. Yeah, I know how to do that.
And it's great to see that you do have both sides of that. You know, it's like a lot of people just focus on one side and they're afraid to do any kind of fills. And then there's the other kind of drummers who are afraid or not even able to really know how to play grooves. And the fact that you're able to do both, and you have that conscious effort of knowing what to play, what not to play, when to shine, when to let everybody else shine, I mean, that is such an important aspect of being a musician.
Yeah, that's the listening part. That's where you have to stop and it's you know, people say they talk about listening for a musician as a key thing a lot. What they don't talk about a lot is what you're listening for or who you're listening to. So when you're playing, okay, you're listening to the bass player, you're listening to the song and all that sort of stuff. But when you're on a session, the other thing you have to listen to is the producer, the artist, the engineer. You have to listen to what they're saying, what they're not saying. You know, what are they inferring? I work a lot off of body language. Literally, I've stopped takes because I'm looking through the window and I see a gesture or I see somebody look, or they'll notice something. And it's, you know, when they're noticing it for a good reason, you know when they're noticing it for a wrong reason. But it's really a matter of paying attention to what's being said, what's being inferred. You know, if there's an excitement, if you're not getting that excitement off the track, then something's wrong. Something's, you know, if you're not walking in there going, yeah, man, that was killing, then okay, it didn't have that thing. So what's wrong? What's missing? Or what's too much? You know, you whatever the case is, if it's a busy track, then okay, maybe we're overplaying. If it's a simple track, maybe we're underplaying. Maybe we need to color it a little more, throw some splash cymbals or hi-hat work, you know. So that's something that you have to pay attention to more than anything, is the artist and how do they feel? How are they expressing themselves about what you're doing? And ask questions, you know, say, hey, is this working for you? Trust your instincts. I was having a moment in this section of the song. I'm not too sure about that. And let them tell you. Because they will. If you give them room, if you say, hey, I'm not too sure about the bridge, then they'll express themselves. Yeah, I know. I was kind of hearing something funny. Okay, then we're all on the same page. Fix the bridge. Whatever that is. So that's a key element. And there's a lot of that on this record, listening to John and listening to Rich. And trying to make sure that when we walked out of the studio that day, we had everything we needed.
Yeah, and I was gonna bring that back to the album, and I can definitely tell, from everybody in the band that there is so much listening to what's going on. I mean, obviously, again, like there is moments to shine for everyone in the band, but it is so important to make the song the best that it possibly can be. And whether it is taking the single tom approach, whether it's using a 28-inch kick drum, whether it's using your normal kit, switching up the cymbals, whatever the case is. I mean, all of those sounds, when it comes to drum work, can be so important when it comes to recording a song, and it can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and the only hard part in that is because the drums tend to be the first thing laid down. I mean, other than with the demo thing, he'll do the keyboards, and a lot of that stuff kind of makes the cut anyway. But the drums are the first human instrument to go down. We don't get the chance to go, oh, that thing you played on the bass. If you're in a band, sometimes, well, hopefully you get the chance to play as a band and play the songs, and you work the songs out that way. That's the most ideal scenario, because then you can hear other people's ideas and work off of it. Dave gets to hear what I play and respond to what I played. Ted got to hear what I played and what Dave played and respond to that. And then John can go back at the end and edit things in and out, I have a keyboard part here, but because of what Ted played or the idea that he had, I don't need it. I can pull it out, or I can change it. I don't get that option. So sometimes we'll go in and there'll be sections of the song and I'll do a main take, but I'll go back in and kind of give optional drum fills for sections. Like we'll do a busy pass, and then we'll do a simple pass, and then we'll do a quirky pass with the intent of let's hear what everyone plays, and then Rich and John can go back in at the end and go, okay, now that we have everything down, this drum fill's not working. But fortunately, there's 2 or 3 to choose from. The beauty of digital, you can go in now and kind of get a reactionary track. So if I played something too much and there was something happening on the guitar, okay, well, let's go back and find a simpler drum fill. So in essence, I get that option to respond, even though I'm not I'm not technically responding.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense too. And even with that limited options of being able to switch out so many different things, it's great to see that you do have that conscious effort to be able to, whether it is fills, whether it is different patterns, just if you got that time in the studio and you're able to use different takes like that, and something might come up later to make it sound better, I'm glad that you're able to do that.
Yeah, the other aspect of that is because I know, and part of why this started as just a session on a couple of tunes and became a whole record, is Dave and I play together so much that there's a lot of predictability. I know what he's going to do. I mean, I don't know every single note that he's going to choose, but I know his tone, I know his intent, and I know how he'll respond to me. So I can play something and already go, God, Dave is going to do this. And John knows it as well, because they've, not only from the work together with Spox, but they've been friends for years. We can approach everything kind of guessing where everyone's going to go. So there's a lot of that happens as well. And even you can take that that concept to a session. If you're working with a bass player that you're familiar with, that okay, I work with this guy all the time, you can, part of the beauty of that is that communication that happens that way. I know how he's going to respond to this fill, so I can go this direction, or this guy likes to do these things, so I'm going to play simpler to give him room to speak, and that way we'll all say what we need to, at the end of the day. So there's a lot of that in this record. There's a spot like No Burden Left to Carry. There's a lot of that where I know what's coming from Dave, and I play purely based on the fact that Dave is going to play a certain way. And it's so great because when you hear it in your head and then you let the session go, you play the part. You come back a few weeks later, Dave's put his parts down, and you hear exactly what you thought he was going to play. There's a great satisfaction in that, because okay, that was the intent, and Dave's the shit. So
he really is. And again, it's great to see this lineup get together for recording a full-on album. And, just the fact that you do have that kind of chemistry with Dave, and just like you said, the fact that you were able to hear the song after he recorded his parts, and it was exactly the way that you thought it was going to go, and with that being so satisfying. I mean, that's what I hear from the listener aspect as well. I mean, this album is just so satisfying, being able to hear a different take on these kinds of musicians that are known so much for playing prog that are doing something just a bit different than what you're normally used to, yet it sounds so refreshing. It sounds so familiar at the same time as well, but just done in a different way, and I just hear that throughout the entire album.
Good. Well, I hope that's the consensus. I hope everyone feels that way. That was kind of the idea, is to not play, is for that reason, play for that reason, is let's not make a noodly bits record. You know, there's lots of those guys, and they do it really well, and you know, okay, we can do it too, but that's not really the point. Let's really focus on the songs and where they want to go, what they want to be, and get out of the way. You know, get out of the way of the song.
Oh, absolutely. So with that in mind, I mean, when you go back and listen to the album now, how do you feel about it?
I like it. This is an odd occasion of where I find myself listening to this record a lot because I like it. Not just because of my own ego going, oh, listen to me, you know. It's the songs. I like the songs a lot. I love other aspects of it. I think Ted plays beautifully on it. We don't get to hear Ted play lead, very often, if at all. You know, there's a few moments on some of the Spock's records where he has little bits, but we never hear him as a lead guitar player, generally as a rhythm guitar player, as a supportive guitar player, and he's the dominant guy on this record. And there's a lot of really beautiful, imaginative solos that again, it's not about look at me, it's about serving the song and how does it take to the next level, and he killed it. And so I like that a lot. I like hearing his contributions. I love hearing Dave's bits and just the songs. Yeah, I'm happy.
Oh. And that's so great to hear that too, because I know it can happen for some musicians where they just go back and there's so many things that they wish they could change about what it is. I mean, be it the production, be it the equipment that they use, be it what they actually played on the record. But the fact that you are enjoying the album so much that you are just listening to it for your own musical satisfaction, I mean, just because you like the music so much that you just want to go back and listen to it, that is such a great thing to hear.
Yeah, I think every artist is going to have that sense about it. I mean, we all can, everyone listens to something they did and has that sense of, I wish I had. But I think part of the session musician, you know, that I am, you know, because that's more of what I am. I've grown up being more of a session guy than being in bands. I've been in bands. But that training, you have to become, how do you word that? You have to get used to the idea of playing something, being confident in what you've done, and walk away. And even if you do listen later on, again, like I said, once the other parts are added on, you might go, oh, I would have done something different had I known that was going to be there. You know, that's, if you don't learn to walk away from it, you'll be a tortured soul. I mean, imagine guys like Porcaro and J.R. Robinson and, you know, these session guys that play on so many records. If they constantly had that feeling, it would just drive them nuts because there's so many records. I mean, you can't go on the radio. There were periods of time where you couldn't go on the radio without hearing, you know, all of 5 or 6 drummers. It just didn't matter. Every song, one after another. It was, oh, here's a Porcaro song. Here's a J.R. song. Here's a Bernard Purdy song. Here's a Jim Gordon song. It's just how it went. There was all of 5 or 6 dudes, and they'd cycle through. And the rest of the music was, you know, the Eagles, so you get Don Henley. If you couldn't walk away from your track, you would literally drive yourself nuts. So that's something you train into and get accustomed to earlier on.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that is so important too, and I think that can apply to the band aspect as well. I mean, taking that idea from the session musician and just knowing when to walk away, when a part is going to be good enough to be on the radio, because it might not just drive you nuts, but especially if you have the time to be able to consistently work on it, the music may never be released because you might always find parts that you want to change, you might find other equipment that you want to use. I mean, it might be an unfinished project if you just don't learn to let it go and let the public enjoy.
There was an interesting moment on the first Spock's record that I tracked. The song, titles. Hold up, bear with me. I got to think of song titles here because it's key to what I'm saying. Nuts. Give me 1 second.
Oh, sure.
Oh, and of course I grabbed a device that has no power. Something Very Strange. That's the song I'm thinking of. The drum track on that song, well, first of all, it's a weird series of measures. You know, I don't even remember what it is. It goes in and out of multiple time signatures, or it's a long bar of 22, whatever. The way it was played, if you listen to it on a click, it moves all over the place. It doesn't line up to the click. It's a very flowing track. And initially, we questioned it because it was hard to play. Strangely enough, there's a lot of things about it with the changing and the moving. Not hard to play like a Frank Zappa thing. Hard to play in the sense of how to make it feel right and groove along with this arpeggiating part that was in the bass and everything else. So we did a couple of passes on it, and everyone was looking kind of funny. And I finally said, "Wait a minute, take out the click and just listen to it." And when you take the click out, suddenly it becomes human. You don't have this mechanized, perfect thing to measure it up against. The click removed, everything sounded great. We were like, "Oh no, it sounds fine, so leave it." So it's always been an interesting thing to me, a reminder that it isn't always about the perfection and what have you. That going back and hearing that too, because I have the masters of those that I can listen to. I kind of laugh hearing it against the click. It's like, but take the click out and it sounds fine.
Yeah, and that is such an important aspect to me as well. I mean, of course, it is so important to be able to know how to play to a click, play with the groove, all of that stuff that is so important. But my favorite albums are always the ones that sound the most human, where it sounds like actual musicians are playing actual music. Not the drums aren't quantized. I mean, not everything's fixed in Pro Tools. It's just musicians getting together and playing their instruments in a great setting, and that is a great example of that off that album. And it's great to see that, because I never would have thought about that with the click from the listener aspect, but when you do put it up with the click, I just imagine how jarring it could sound, but once you make it more human again, it sounds so great.
Well, that's like going down to New Orleans and telling a New Orleans drummer, "Let's put you on a click," and it's like, why would you do that? Hearing that kind of music, second line or any music that comes from that part of the country, it's just not, that's not what it's for. Little Feat and everything. I can't imagine Little Feat, playing to a click, and they may have, but it's like, it's just the idea that it's such an organic human thing, and it's truly that concept of musicians reacting to each other. And so it's, you got to find ways to keep that in. Even though I love playing to a click, I love always having something locking it down. I don't need to. It's more just a matter of, it helps with editing. It helps when you do 5 or 6 takes. Now you're not stuck to the concept of that one pass. You can take 3 passes of the song and go, "Oh, I like the fill in this one. I like the fill in that one." Okay, there's pluses and minuses to that too. Really, what it is when you're playing a 15-minute song with really complex changes and everything like that. It's highly unlikely I'm going to walk into a studio and nail it, in one take. Yeah, I got it, and nobody does. I mean, you can get up to the smoking guys like Gavin Harris and everything like that. I guarantee you his takes of some of those more complex, Stephen Wilson bits, Porcupine Tree, those are pieced together bits. Or he works a long time. And that's the thing. I mean, it's like you don't always have that time. If you're working at home, and you're not working on someone else's dime, okay, that's fine. Maybe you can put the time in to learn the song top to bottom. But really, those are edits. So working to a click makes the edits easier.
Oh yeah, and there is those great checks and balances, plus and minuses that go into playing with a click, playing without a click. And again, just like when you can be the most well-rounded musician that you can be, you can adapt to both of those situations and, make it more of a human album without a click, make it more easier to be able to decide what takes you're going to be able to do when you are using a click, or just to get that groove and know what the BPM, the time signatures that are going on with it. I mean, there's so many different variations that can go into each recording process, and when you're able to adapt yourself to those situations, it'll be so much easier.
And I mean, and that being said, sometimes it is best to go, you know what, turn that thing off, just hit record. Sometimes that's the way to go, and it really depends on the type of music and the situation at the time. Because I mean, like I said, I've done both. I've done cuts where we had the band all in one shot, and we just went in and tracked a record. Never mind the machines and the edits and everything. We're going to do it right, and the take you get is the take you're going to get, and that's they all have their place. They're all good.
Oh, very much so. So, with all this in mind, of course, with the album coming out in a couple weeks now, and, from what I've seen, a lot of great praise that's been going on with the singles that have been released so far, what's going to be happening next with Pattern Seeking Animals?
Well, I mean, like the weird thing about it is, again, we approached this as a session thing. It wasn't originally supposed to be a band per se. So I think normally when you say, I want to be in a band, we should make a record. There's an order of events. And if you are a band that has any kind of name recognition already, then when you're about halfway into the record, then you start doing certain promotional aspects. We were done. We were virtually done already when we made up our minds to. So the album's coming out. I mean, the next phase is doing some live shows, because we hadn't talked. There was no intent of doing any live shows, but now there is. This is definitely a band. We will be live. We will function as a trio in terms of of these four musicians. John has no desire to tour. He hasn't been out on the road or played live in years and everything. So his idea is, I'm just going to stay home and keep writing songs. So he will be, as much as it's his baby, he will be the Alan Parsons guy and stay home and be the production guy. Dave, Ted, and I will go out. We're going to take 2 additional guys, and we're looking to book dates now. We're trying to get on a few festivals out of the gate. Most likely, because of the way things are planned, we'll probably start seeing some shows early part of next year. And yeah, so that's next, is booking dates and getting out. And what's funny is we'll probably have a whole nother record finished by the time we start touring for this record. And we're already tracking another one. I'm already 4 songs in. I'm actually supposed to go in the studio next week, I think, to do another 2 or 3 songs.
Wow.
So it's entirely feasible we'll have another album done by the end of the year.
Oh, that's
so yeah. It's a weird. Yeah, we're approaching this a lot more. Again, it's once we came to the conclusion that this was a viable band. Because the other weird aspect of it is, it is so much of a Spock's Beard element. That wasn't the key. It wasn't that. We never thought. We were. There was never a moment on a bus. We were going, hey, you know what? Let's just. That's absurd. However, prior to Ted joining Spock's Beard, and prior to me becoming the recording drummer, that was sort of the inspiration going on. We had talked about doing a trio back then with me, Dave, and Ted. I had been listening to some of Ted's music, and we had been communicating about that, and I expressed a desire to work with him. Dave had, both of them live up in Sacramento, so they had started working together as a cover band, so they had become really good friends. So that concept of a trio like that, it was an early conversation from, I don't know, when did Ted join Spock's? Was it 2010 or 11, something like that?
Yeah.
I don't remember now. So that was the germ. When John approached, initially it was me, and we had conversations to that nature of, and it was an obvious thing, with me playing drums, he automatically went to Dave, again, old friends, and Dave and I worked together really well. And conversations led to, well, God, who would sound really good? Again, and then it became this whole deal of, oh, well, now it's a band. So now we're approaching it more, the future of the band is more like, this is a band. We're going to keep going. Everyone will ask, well, what does that mean for Spock's Beard? It doesn't mean anything for Spock's Beard. They're 2 separate entities. The future of Spock's Beard is up to the members of Spock's Beard. Their last album is still relatively new. It's, what is it, not even a year old?
Yeah.
I haven't heard any talks of another record, but that's how they work. It's very unusual that they dive in, it's 1 or 2 years between each record. So, we could start hearing noise from them, in anywhere 3 to 6 months, something like that. I have no idea. It's so hard to say. That's a band that's been around for over 25 years. It's not a future for me to really say. I don't know. I'm not in the band anymore. So I work with the guys, but yeah, I think at least in terms of focus, Ted, Dave, and I will be focusing on this for a while. But we'll see. We'll see what Rio and Al and the guys come up with.
Oh yeah, and that's the part that I enjoy so much is like, be it you being in Spock's Beard, being out of Spock's Beard. I mean, whatever the case is. I mean, with Pirates Seeking Animals, you're playing music with friends and musicians that you work so well together with. I mean, all the outside stuff doesn't matter when you're focusing on this project. I mean, you're just getting together with a group of great musicians, great friends, and making some music. And I love the fact that the live aspect is actually going to be happening now. You know, getting a couple other musicians to be able to join you on stage and fill out the rest of the sound that's going on there. And of course, everyone is going to be doing other stuff. I mean, you're going to be doing other stuff outside of Pirate Seeking Animals. They might be going back
I'm
to
still
Spock's
working on a
Beard.
solo record.
Yeah. And you got a solo record on top of that, too. That's awesome.
Well, and that in that same breath, I mean, Ted and I have been I've been pushing Ted to do a solo album as well. You know, he's such a fantastic songwriter. I mean, his singing talents and playing talents we all know that. But as a songwriter, we just don't hear enough of him. You know, he's got one or two songs on each Spock's record, and they're almost always the focal point. At least the two albums that I was on, he wrote Submerged, he wrote Hiding Out, and he wrote the lyrics to Afterthoughts. And those are big highlights on that record. Oblivion Particle, he wrote Minion. What is the other song he wrote? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, but it would be really great for him to do a solo album as well. And, you know, oddly enough, Dave and I would probably end up playing on it. I like to think, I hope, but it wouldn't be a prerequisite. I'd love to just hear him do a record, you know, with anybody on it. So who knows? Maybe we'll inspire that to happen soon.
Oh, absolutely. So with that in mind, I mean, with you working on a solo album, what should people expect from this record? I'm 4/5 done with it. The last song that I'm working, well, it's not the last song, but I have 3 songs that I'm working on currently. The drums are done on all of them. They're in various stages of finish, but there is one song that I'm working on that involves, it's very adventurous in terms of how I want it recorded, and it's taking a long time because it's very hard. It involves musicians from various countries that are relative to the song. And it's not just something that you can do. It's something that has to be highly planned. And considering I have virtually no budget to do it, it's taking a long time. So fortunately, the people that did put a little bit of funding in the beginning of this project are being unbelievably patient. I've worked with songwriters most of my life, and a lot of these songwriters have written songs that never saw the light of day, but I still have. The fact that I remember them after 10 or 15, 20 years is a big deal. So I went back and revisited those songs, pulled them out, went to those songwriters, if necessary, rewrote, fixed things, updated things. Otherwise, just track these songs again that I did the demos for, except with me singing and with newer musicians. In some cases, the same musicians. So it's kind of all over the map because I've worked with all different kinds of songwriters. But the idea was, for me, the whole scheme of the record was to kind of state everywhere I've been. There will be proggy moments on it. There will be funky moments on it. There will be straight, just simple rock, pop kind of moments on it. The approach is a lot more of like a Peter Gabriel thing. Where does it go? Well, where have I been? It's really kind of hard to pinpoint. It's this, it's many things. It's kind of just an assessment of where I've been up to now as an artist. So does that clarify anything? It might sound like it's all over the board with that answer, but I love the sound of that. I mean, the fact that you are going back, paying tribute to what you've done so far, possibly some things that you want to accomplish in the future that you're doing with this record, and being so ambitious with what you want to accomplish with it. I mean, the fact that you can have proggy moments mixed in with popular rock moments, mixed in with all these international artists. I mean, it's so great to see that you are taking that on and just paying tribute to what you've done and want to be able to show that off in a new way.
Yeah, and at the same breath, the fact that I refer to the past, there's nothing. The songs are from the past, so to speak, but everything's approached from a new perspective. Where I am now as a musician. So I'm taking these ideas and going, okay, but what would I do today? Excuse me, what would I do today? So that's the key thing is it's going into the past, but treating it of where am I going now as well. Now what? What's the next phase? And also I'm singing on this as the primary singer, which I've never done. I've always sang, and in cover bands I've been a lead singer and everything, but I've never been the lead singer. The one Spock's tune is really kind of the first time on a record that I've stepped out as the lead singer. I've always been a backup singer, at least in the bands that I've been in. So here we go.
And with that in mind, I mean, what is that like for you to fully immerse yourself into being for original music, being able to handle the lead vocals like that?
It's funny. The vocals have been the fastest part. It's the other things that take time. That once I get enough of the music done, I go and I track a vocal in a day at the most. Background vocals are harder because some of the background vocals are very adventurous. And again, I'm using people from all over the place. It's not necessarily here in a studio with me. I'm sending tracks to people, going, here, lay some things down. So I'm at their mercy as to their time and how they track and record. But it's also the challenge, because a lot of these songs have some complex vocals, not complex like a Gentle Giant-y kind of thing, not a Spock's Beard bit, but just a lot, complex, heavy parts and thick, rich vocals. And so, it's weird because, I don't think much about it. I've never really been a critic of myself. I'm working with a couple of friends and letting them kind of guide me a little way, people that I've known most of my life. And either I play it, I record something and send it to them and go, what do you think? And they give me notes and I retrack, or I just track with them. It's I don't know. I don't even know really how to answer that. Other than talk about it.
Well, yeah, that's got me more excited about it. Being able to hear it that way. And again, I love the fact that you are tackling a full-on solo album like this. Where you're able to record so much, you're writing so much of it, you're getting so many great musicians and songwriters a part of this. It does sound like a great, ambitious record, but again, from the listener standpoint, I can't wait to hear this thing when it's finally ready to be able to be heard.
Yeah, me too. As long as I've been working on this thing, I feel like just sending everyone individual songs, just going, God, at least here, this is what I have done. You guys have waited so long. But yeah, I'm excited for everyone to hear it as well. It's a lot of fun, and it's similar to the pattern-seeking animals thing. I'm finding myself finishing it and going back and listening, going, I'm glad at least I like it. I'm not one of those artists that goes, ugh, I hate what I did, or I hate that record. If I hate it, then I'm not going to put it out. I don't understand that mentality of I don't like that. I've heard things that I did 30 years ago and thought, oh, okay, well, that was 30 years ago. But again, that's the matter of walking away from things and going, that was what it was when it was. You can't listen to a Beatles record and judge it by today's standards. You have to go, that's a Beatles record from 1962, 63, whatever. You have to judge it based on what it is. So yeah, I'm hopefully this will all tie in very soon. One of the key issues that I've been waiting on has finally kind of come to fruition. So now it's a matter of tracking this one song. It's an arrangement thing. It's a very hard to explain. You'll hear.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about that day when I finally do get to sit down with a record and actually listen to it. The more that you're describing it, be it the arrangements, be it the songs, be it in the way that it's tracking. I'm already starting to visualize some of it in my head, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. And the fact that you are able to work on so much as you have, be it pattern-seeking animals, be it a solo record, be it any guest spots, session drumming, whatever the case is. You're keeping yourself so busy, and that's got to be so satisfying to be able to play and record all of these different styles and genres that you want to play.
Yeah, I like that. I don't like sticking to any one thing. I love, playing on one thing Monday and something completely different on Tuesday, and that keeps me sane. I grew up listening to music like that. My house was, there was 8 kids plus my parents, so there's all these different tastes in music, from one room to the next. It was normal to hear, Elton John, and the next room you'd hear Kenny Rogers, and then, the Commodores or Lionel Richie or something like that, and then go around to the other side of the house and you'd hear Joni Mitchell and Peter Gabriel and Genesis and another brother that loved the Sex Pistols and the Clash and the Ramones and the Pretenders, and that was my house on any given moment. So being the youngest, I just took everything in. So it's hard to not do that. If I'm stuck in one thing too long, I get bored.
Yeah, and again, that is what is so satisfying about, especially with the work that you do with so many different sessions, is that you get to work with so many different musicians, so many different producers, engineers that all have these different ideas of how to record, what you should play, what you should not play, and of course, taking that all in and being able to apply that to other sessions, other bands, other recording sessions, other live shows that you can do.
Yeah, that's it. That's literally what it is. It's everything's a learning experience, and and you take it into every session. It's vocabulary, you know, in a nutshell. It's really what it is. It's just gaining vocabulary, and hopefully it works on the next record.
Absolutely. And I think I think that's a great note to end on. And thank you so very much for taking all this time to be able to talk to me about what's going on in your world right now. And of course, talking about the debut album from Pattern Seeking Animals coming out July 5th through Inside Out Music. I absolutely love this album. I love how this was all approached. I love the final result that came with it. And, you know, the fact that you guys are going to be going out and touring behind this album, and, you know, whatever happens in the future with the next album, and, you know, just being able to continue on that way is great. And I'm so excited about the solo album that you are finishing up now, you know, whenever that comes out. I mean, that's going to be an amazing time to be able to check that out. And of course, all the other stuff that you got going on as well, anything announced, unannounced. I mean, it's an exciting time to be a fan of yours, and I can't wait to see what's going to be coming next.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm actually, there's 3.2. I'm doing that too. That's the end of the year. We're at Prague Stock, and that's with Robert Berry and Henry Collier, and that should be an interesting as well. I haven't even had time to dive into that. That's next. So yeah, that's the end of the year. It's going to get busy.